Hi, I'm Lyndsey Medford, and this is an excerpt from my book, My Body and Other Crumbling Empires Lessons for Healing in a World That Is Sick. And this comes from chapter 6. In 2021, when I began writing this book, the world was in as much disarray as ever. California was decimated by wildfires, Louisiana and Tennessee by storms. The Taliban retook Afghanistan. My friends were organizing to lobby the state legislature about education and COVID-19. People were scared. People had real, urgent needs. Every day, I got up and wrote words and took care of myself. I'd take a walk and do yoga. I cooked for myself. I cleaned my house to keep my own spirits up. I scheduled calls and dates with friends. I called this success. For most of my adult life, I considered every one of those tasks personal time and tried to cram them in between work, volunteering, writing, and trying to comprehend the entire world and what to do about it. Now, they consumed my days. I'd decided to live as if this work of writing was work enough, as if my own sacred being was worth stewarding well, even in the midst of tragedy and chaos. I instinctively reach for a defense of my limited productivity while the world is so full of need. I could tell you about the exact cytokines the body produces in response to chronic stress, which have been directly linked to increased severity of my particular disease. Or I could simply say I'd decided to experimentally confirm my sneaking suspicion that I feel better physically when I am happier. Or should I tell you that we wanted a baby and I was supposed to reduce stress for that reason too? In the end, my only real defense is an intuition that I really must unhook from the belief that the world will improve in proportion to my productivity, that oh so much depends on me at all times. I am trying to resist the internal need to defend my rest at all. As my experiment unfolded, I was surprised to find how quickly and naturally my determined lack of activity actually affected the world. I invited my neighbor to join me for yoga in my yard, bringing respite to her weeks of tending to students, parents, and teachers. I had time in an afternoon to bring some tea along to another friend in the midst of important leadership work. A third friend sat on my porch on a different morning, reciting a litany of tasks and projects she wished she could cancel, but things still have to happen, she sighed with bone-deep weariness. I caught her eye. Do they? I said, trying to be gentle. What if, in the midst of an ongoing global emergency, nothing has to happen besides surviving? No one has margin. Everyone is in despair, headlines and friends said alike. For so many years, I had taken statements like this to mean that I don't deserve to be the exception. When so many people have no choice but to be under constant stress, how could I sit back? How did I dare to pursue peacefulness? Trying it now, for the first time in my life, I quickly began to wonder why I thought I deserved to be so self-importantly busy and constantly off kilter all the time. Now that I was paying attention to the people and needs right in front of me, starting with my own, I found I had not retreated from the rest of the world at all, but had more resources available to take exquisite care of those right around me who so deeply needed and deserved it. With or without chronic illness, we all have limitations and needs. But when circumstances seem dire, when we are constantly encouraged to continue dividing our attention, when we're lulled by the false promise of constant progress, and the subtle threat that rest equals failure, we view our limitations as enemies. Underneath our frustration, fear, or shame about our limits lies the seductive, if absurd, lure of the limitless life. And why shouldn't it? We've been discipled by extractive capitalism in the false gospel of limitless growth. Oddly, though, it is the business and productivity worlds where the trend is to acknowledge and accept limits. The principle of essentialism reminds us that when we spread our ambitions too thin, we actually fail to make progress on any of our goals. Better to choose one or two, focus, and concentrate our limited energy in the direction that's most important and most suited to our own strengths. But we fear saying no. We forget to count the costs of our inner work, our caring work, our healing work. We pile on tasks, try to keep up with the hourly news, and say yes to one more invitation because it seems like we should. Because everyone else looks like they're keeping up. Because a constant, harrying, not enough whispers in our ears. That's how the ableism in our culture, the belief that our hustle will prove our worth, busyness as a badge of honor, the expectation that we'll demonstrate our commitment to something by doing more and more, hurts us all. Even when we seem to be managing our overtaxed lifestyles, we're half-assing important tasks, half paying attention to important relationships, and half aware of whether the things we're doing are really ours to do at all. Whether intentional or not, keeping us busy and stressed is a great strategy for distracting us from participating in our democracy, building resilient communities of solidarity, or pursuing groundedness and peace. And it's a great strategy for selling us stuff. Meanwhile, sick or not, our bodies under stress are slowly wearing down. That was My Body and Other Crumbling Empires. It's available on March 7th.